Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Leadership Voices. I'm your host, Jacob Geller, calling in here on Friday morning, Friday, January 23rd, where across the nation, across the continent, for those of you that know that I'm up here in Montreal, Canada, we are bracing for a pretty cold weekend. I got folks in Texas that are worried about things shutting down. I got friends in the Northeast. They're worried about snowfall. Of course, here, we're used to it, and the world's in a fun place, right? We're halfway through the school year. We're wondering, how did our budget plans from last year go? We're starting to look at that, but we're also right in the middle of planning out our budgets for next year at the same time. And so it's a great time for reflection, also a great time for planning as we think about what is on the mind of the schools and the school district leaders everywhere. The Oscar nominations came out in the last day or two. Will it be Timmy's year? Will Leo win another one? We don't know, but it'll all go down in Los Angeles, California in a couple weeks. Of course, the Rams playing this weekend. And why do I talk about that? Well, our guest today calls in from Los Angeles County as well. Here to tell us more about her school district, her story. It's my honor to welcome to the show Dr. Natasha Baker from Norwalk, Mirada Unified School District. Dr. Baker, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much. How's your week going so far? It's a short week this week. Tell us a little bit. You got time for us? So hopefully not everything's on fire this week.
Absolutely not. I'm excited. Today's Friday, so how can you not have a good day on a Friday, right? But yeah, it was a short week this week. We were able to sit in on the School Services of California's discussion of the statewide budget. So that was a good experience. And yeah, we're just rounding out a good week after a principals meeting and so forth. So it's been nice.
Beautiful. And no snow expected down in LA? You'll
Absolutely
be all right over
not. Absolutely not. This is beautiful Southern California. It never rains here.
Never rains. I think some folks, maybe if they're not from the area, might think of LA as all just, palm trees or maybe the pier down in Santa Monica, but that's not the whole picture. And so why don't you quickly sort of give us the picture of Norwalk, Mirada, a district that brings together two cities, and sort of for folks that don't know, maybe by the numbers or the demographics, tell us a little bit about your community.
Sure. So Norwalk, Mirada is a combination of two cities, both Norwalk and the city of Mirada. So we deal with two municipalities, and we encompass about 15,000 students, a largely Latino community. La Mirada is more of a middle class socioeconomic population, and we have also a number of immigrants in our district from all over the world, Korea, Latin America, and so forth. And so we are just a conglomerate of really good people, great local restaurants. We're near Disneyland. We are part of LA County, which encompasses about 86 districts, millions of kids. And so it's really a good place to be. A lot of folks here in the district are homegrown. They've been in the district for 20 or 30 years. And so we are lucky to have made some gains on the California dashboard in ELA and mathematics, and certainly are looking forward to sitting for our exams this year as well, which are coming up in a few weeks.
Amazing. And congratulations on those gains. From my understanding, you've been at the district for about a year now or so in the superintendent role. Congratulations on that. You sit here, kind of pick your head up a year in. What are some of the biggest takeaways so far for you? And we won't hold them to, we're not asking for a 1-year report or anything like that, but how's it been going so far?
That's going well. If you did ask for a 1-year report, I would say go to our website at nlmusd.org and check out my 90-day plan. That was where I spent about 6 months really combing the district, talking to community leaders, speaking with our staff, our parents, our kids, to really learn about the district, right? And what I learned is that folks were pretty excited about where we are, but they were even more excited to tell me about where they'd like to go, given the use of technology and the wave of the future in terms of employment and college. They wanted to have those conversations. And so after a year in, I was able to not do a whole lot of restructuring, but I am focusing on our ed services team. That's our core business. I spent some time with our school board and our community, again, really looking at focus areas and our goals. And so the board approved 5 focus areas. The number one focus area is academic excellence, and we've got some SMART goals under that, and we also progress monitor as we go. And then the second goal is always fiscal sustainability, right? You want to generate revenue, not have a structural deficit, and be able to purchase things for kids and families and our school sites that they need in order to support student achievement. So a year in, I'm excited about where we're headed. It isn't without its challenges, but nothing is.
I love it. How often do you go to Disneyland?
I haven't been to Disneyland since I was a kid, but I always use it as a marker because I know to the world, everybody knows about Disneyland. So we're close. We're like 20 minutes from Disneyland.
That's amazing. I had to
Yeah.
ask. So I want to talk more about the data. I want to talk more about the some of the core values of the school. Before we do that, I want to get to know Dr. Baker before Dr. Baker was Dr. Baker. And you talked a bit about Disneyland as a child. Um, I want to think back. Maybe it's middle school, maybe it's high school. Was superintendency and education leadership always the plan, or how did you end up doing this line of work that is such a unique profession and calling?
Sure. So I never thought I was going to be a superintendent, but I knew I had a calling for leadership, and leadership skills
Beautiful.
are transferable. And so I'm somebody who's always, looked at and studied leaders across different industries. And so I wanted to be a teacher because I had great teachers, and I wanted to be able to have the type of profession that could help folks and also support my family, my immediate family. I'm not married, I don't have kids, but I do come from the kind of household that requires me to contribute and support my sister and my nieces and nephews, and I want to make sure that they have a sustainable path going forward. And so my life has always been about helping others, and you have to demonstrate that in your own life as well as in your career, from my perspective. And so I got into teaching and very quickly was invited to be a dean, and then a principal, and then a fellowship, and you just continue to grow, because when you're kind of living in your purpose and in your calling, people will recognize that and they'll want to provide professional learning opportunities. And so I was just lucky to have that. So I've been climbing the ladder for quite some time. And after working for the state of Michigan, at the Department of Education and then with the governor's office there, I really recognized as I was going through my doctoral program that I wanted to lead a school system, because that would have the biggest impact for thousands of kids. And so I started on that path and kind of worked my way up. After becoming a deputy, was really getting groomed and coached to be a superintendent. And so here I am in a role that allows me to work with civic leaders and families and kids and staff to really make sure kids have what they need once they leave a school system to become whoever they want to be.
That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
The grades, all those pieces is about helping folks become who they can and want to be. And so
Yeah.
it's great when you distill it down like that. You kept my 5-year streak intact. The 5-year streak is I've asked superintendents if they plan to be superintendents, and not one person has ever said yes to me. And so the streak continues, which I think is beautiful. I really do. I think it's a calling. I think oftentimes the community pulls you into the role more so than you pushing yourself into it, and the community at large, not just one specific school or system. I wanted to talk about a unique part of your education, more recent. You seemed you earned a master's in finance. Is that right?
Yes.
Tell me about how that's not typical for a school district leader. Tell me about that. But I can see the relevance, right? You're running a gigantic budget. Budget efficacy is an equity issue when it comes
Right.
down to it. So tell me about what motivated that, and then how have you taken what you learned there and made yourself a better superintendent?
Sure. So, started, the master's in finance program at Johns Hopkins, before COVID, and then went through COVID, took a break like many students did, and then wanted to finish up. I think that it's important to understand the financial aspects of any organization, any business, any corporation, any school district. And as a woman, a female who's leading, you want to make sure that you're a part of the conversation and at the table in a meaningful way. And so while I am not a chief business officer, or I don't have a CPA license, I do know enough about finance to be dangerous, to ask the right questions and to recognize where there's some errors. And then I have, because of the background in the coursework and the discussions in the program, many of those students are in the financial industry. And so I really learned a lot about cost cutting strategies. You can go a very aggressive way, or you can go a non aggressive way, somewhere in the middle, and then understanding what the financial statement should look like or graph should look like in order for it to make sense to your audience from whom you may be seeking approval. And so I think it's a huge advantage to be a
Definitely.
female in a leadership role and run a $300 million budget, and not only have a background in instruction, but also finance. And so that was my motivation to get that, because as a leader, whether I'm running a school district or a corporation, like, I want to have a background on where the money is.
Did it put you back in any moments feeling like you're in high school going, wow, I really wish we'd learned some of this finance stuff, some of the financial literacy piece? Did it change anything you thought about instruction going back and being a student yourself again?
Yeah, I almost wished I had done finance first when I was younger and
Right.
then got into education, but that wasn't on my mind. I didn't know anybody in the financial industry. I wasn't into economics. But as I grew in my leadership, I grew in perspective. And I realized that it was something I needed to have. And I needed to be competitive too. So I didn't want to just do something at a random school. Like, I was looking for a quality program. So when someone saw my background, they go, "Oh, Johns Hopkins," or she's
Yeah.
got a finance background. And that can set you apart. it was worth it. But yes, you going back to school after 40, it's not easy because you got to concentrate.
Yeah. And most superintendents I know aren't rich on free time, so
Right.
so making that extra time
Yeah.
for yourself is key. All right, let's take us in a bit of a different direction here. I saw recently there was the district won an award, a Golden Bell Award. I want to get this right, so I'm going to read it for comprehensive secondary counseling program core values. I also saw that in your core values, value 2 and 3 are encouraging the intellectual curiosity, creativity, success, and individuality of each student, and promoting the mental and physical health of students and staff in an inclusive environment. The reason I mention all of these things is I don't see the word math or ELA anywhere in this, right? And so I want to talk about what how you think about solving for the human first, both with your students and staff, and how that allows you to then deliver effective instructional strategies. And so how do you think about the balance of those two?
Sure. I think when you start as a teacher, you think it's all about kids. When you get into systems leadership, without healthy adults, there's no way to reach children.
Right.
Right. And so I really promote healthy living for the executive team so that they model that for their teams. And then everyone's seeing that cascade down. That means we're not on the phone at 9 o'clock at night with each other. Right. We've got people who are in marriages, they've got kids. People need breaks. And so I'm not the kind of leader who will call you at 2 a.m, email you at 3 a.m, expect you to be on call on Saturday for non-emergencies, right? And there are some systems that live that life. And what that does mean is that on Monday morning, when those staff members come into those school buildings or those departments, they are exhausted. And when they are exhausted, they're not making good decisions and they may react in a way that's not healthy. Right. And so I promote as a leader, and I expect my executive team to promote, as well as our principals, healthy living as demonstrated evidence that your mental health is numero uno. And so my expectation is you take care of yourself and your family so you are prepared for the challenging times when you come in the building. And then for students, we have access to counseling and other supports on every site, so that they too have what they need in the event that something's going on with them. And something is always going on with kids.
Yeah.
So, but adults have to demonstrate that first and how they're living and how they show up. And I really do push that as a model. And it's not easy because we've got workhorses, and I'm a workhorse too. But you get older, you need to slow down, exercise, do some yoga, whatever works for you, so that you're ready to roll on Monday morning.
That's amazing. And I agree. I think you got to be your best self. I think you got to give yourself the break. I think there's diminishing returns on minutes worked or hours worked, and that's both for a student and staff throughout the day. When I think about that picture of the human first, and you're a year in, how were you able to assess was Norwalk La Mirada at with all of this quickly, and then start bringing changes that doesn't feel like, oh wow, the Dr. Baker shuffle, everything's changing ever since she came in. So how were you able to accomplish that, or are you in the middle of it still?
I'm in the middle of the Dr.
Okay.
Baker changes things. And I think it's difficult, no matter how slow you go, for that not to be the narrative, right?
Right.
And it's largely driven by some of our partners. But I think that we're moving forward, right? And so there's a balance with that. You have to honor the traditions and the history and the culture that currently exists, and then share a vision of what you'd like things to be like and work with your board on that. And then if you're not making any shifts toward that vision, it's going to be a struggle to hit any to reach any academic gains or to shift the culture. But shifting culture, you've heard that that saying that
Yep.
culture eats strategy for breakfast every day of the week, including Sundays. So it's really important to lay out your vision and be able to really put an action plan in place and give yourself grace, because there are going to be mistakes. I've made mistakes, others have made mistakes, and we're trying to shift to a culture where that's okay. We acknowledge it, we forgive each other, and we move forward. But that's a shift. That's a shift for us, because folks have been in Norwalk La Mirada a very long time. I have a very senior staff, or tenured staff rather. And so we're working through that. But I believe we're going to do really well this year. We have introduced quarterly data reports, which means we're progress monitoring where we are. I have meetings with principals, individual one-on-one meetings with principals about their academic data, right? It has other data points in there, but when we meet, we're talking math, science, and ELA. So I'm excited about where we're going to go this year.
What I want to know more about those data reports
Yeah.
quarterly, so 4 times a year, obviously.
Yeah.
So are they coming with a report to present to you? Are you looking at the dashboard? Is it iReady data? What gets reviewed in a meeting like that?
So we have a phenomenal director of curriculum instruction who has a mathematics background, and he's actually been
Beautiful.
a math teacher, a principal at a large high school. And so he has created a very, I wouldn't, it's an advanced spreadsheet that's coded on the back end so that you can look up information around English learners, special education students, and you plug in certain information and it will give you everything you want to know about how students are performing in particular areas. So we have special ed, ELA, EL students, and we have some iReady data, but we also have local benchmark data. We have DRDP data, which is for our early learning students. We have some operational data in there too, budget and so forth. But what takes place is you get your information, you have an opportunity to look through it, and then there are some expectations around you coming to share where you are having some successes, where there are some challenges, and then what you plan to do about it. And it's non-evaluative, so I don't write anything down in the meetings. We
Okay.
had a principals meeting this week where they went over those things and they had an opportunity to go through that information, and now they're signing up to have those one-on-ones with me. And so the goal is, if I as a principal know where my kids are and what I need to do to take them to the next level every single quarter, just like in the financial industry, you can make some pretty good decisions. And so it's a practice taken from the private sector.
That's great. And I think the non-evaluative part of that is key, because what I was going to ask you about or go deeper on is, how does this new system come in and not feel like, oh man, I have new homework as a principal. Does she not trust me? What does the big boss want? But it sounds like, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, the positioning is more of a coaching opportunity, or an opportunity to pause and say, how are these things going? And of course, if things are really bad, there can be other, after plays and whatnot. But how have you been able to walk that line across, is it 25, 26 school sites, right? So I'm sure folks are saying, what is Dr. Baker want with me? Why is she meeting with me one-on-one?
I spent a lot of time, you can't come out the gate talking about
Yeah,
quarterly
yeah.
reports, right? But I spent a lot of time with principals on the front end. And I didn't start with the data. I started with their leadership. So we went through this superintendent's handbook that's really about political dynamics. I think they saw me investing in them as human beings first and foremost. And then I had one-on-ones with them, and then we can move forward. But I've always had instruction in academics as part of my narrative. So they knew that those things were important. I'm not the only superintendent who does this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Compton Unified, right here in LA County, they have made significant gains over the last decade. They have the same superintendent. Darren's a good friend of mine. I had a chance to sit in his meetings, in his quarterly meetings, to see how he does them. Mine are a little different. I'm a different district, different leader. But every year, Compton has made significant gains in their demographics. They have a lower socioeconomic status than Norwalk, Mirada, but they've made more gains over time. And it's because their instructional materials are aligned. They look at data regularly, and they're moving forward in terms of student achievement. And so, again, we're a little different demographic, different community. But looking at data does allow for you to target what's needed. Because sometimes something could feel really good and it's not working,
Yeah.
but you keep doing it because it feels good. So we want to do what's right by children. And in order to do that, if you're going to do what's right by Natasha, you have to know what her data is. Otherwise, you might be teaching something that isn't really going to make her move forward.
Well, that's it. And that's the inarguable. You start with the inarguable. Here's where we are. And then what are we going to do about it after that?
Absolutely.
So you talked about the different profiles, and that's where I wanted to go next, right? Supporting two cities, Norwalk and La Mirada, different profiles, right? And even across your district, I'm sure building by building, the different types of students, the types of homes those students go home to are very, very different. How are you balancing being able to, have equal access and equitable practices across a community that supports such a diverse group of families?
That's a really good question. I actually think prior to my tenure, the district was doing a really good job of that. So
Great.
students have access to counseling services right on site. We don't have a whole lot of principals, so it's easy for me to connect with each one of them. And so they have my cell phone. I was just on the phone with a principal last night if they need anything. But there are certain
Hopefully not
systems
at
in
9
place.
p.m. Not at 9 p.m., right?
That's interesting. Actually, she did text me late because she was in a situation, and I told her to get out of the hotel and move forward because she was in a location she didn't want to be in for a conference.
Okay.
So it was just one of those things.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You gotta
It
look
was
out for
actually
your people.
8:45.
No, it's before 9, so it's fine. It's okay.
But yeah, how do I support two cities that are very different? I am connected with community partners. That's really important. People think you can just raise student achievement with teachers and principals, but you need partnership. So Cerritos College is a partner. I was just on the phone with Jeff Boynton yesterday afternoon. He's the city manager of La Mirada. And then, I've also connected with Norwalk City Council. They're involved with our Leadership Academy. And so we have partnerships with both cities. I regularly attend events because they'll need something from the school district. I'll need something from them, all in the name of helping the population that lives in both cities. So it's a nice combination. I think people are really active. Access hasn't been a problem, but we want to make sure we have high expectations across all schools. And that's
Yeah.
where the equity component is also something that we want to pay a close attention to.
How do you make decisions around just sending out resources in a way based on need, but also not letting some folks out of it? I think about a lot of the school districts that we talk to in California right now are really making good use of the ELO-P funds that have increased over the last couple of years, and
Yeah.
really looking at ways to increase instructional time, finding creative
Yep.
ways, whether it's after school, before school, lunch, really the after school being the focus. How do you think about when you have a limited amount of resources, going back to budget efficiency being an equity question? How do you think about making those decisions, which can sometimes leave some folks out?
Sure. So, like you said, the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program grant, that's been a huge support for Norwalk La Mirada. When I first came
Right.
on board, they were struggling to distribute the dollars actually. So this is hitting home with me. What I was able to do is work with the staff to make sure that the schools that are actually in the ELO-P plan are receiving the dollars. Because we were having hubs in one location, and that reduced the number of students who had access to after school programs, right? And so that was one change that I made. We looked at the dollars, we were able to just distribute them accordingly. Now we have over 1,000 kids who are participating in after school programs, which include
Wow.
tutoring. And so that is one example of a change that I made coming in, seeing, hey, we've got $12 million in here. I'm gonna need us to have a after school program at every school.
Yeah.
We even, have done a really good job at outlining which contractors, how we make sure it's a quality program. And so principals have done that work with the support of the school district. Now, doing that was a change for the district, and it was a heavy lift on the front end, but over 1,000 kids are being served every day,
It's amazing.
and that's really something I'm proud of here.
How are you balancing the academic with the for lack of a better word, fun side of the extended like some of the programs that we've seen will do tutoring for part of it, and then you can do
Yeah.
your ballet or music or
Yep.
whatever, or kickball,
Yeah.
whatever you're into, and almost like one unlocks the other. Is that sort of your setup as well?
Absolutely. So tutoring is a huge part of it. So that
Okay.
one-on-one support, that literacy support, that's very important. But we also have some activities, right? And so students have an opportunity to work with YMCA and do chess and
Nice.
all kinds of things, basketball, dancing, and so it's really been a huge help just to make sure that our kids are actively engaged and getting the supports that they need.
I want to go back to your leadership journey a little bit. I know you recently presented or co-presented at a workshop called Lead Hership, right? And with a
Yeah.
focus on female leadership. I understand and you also talked about when we talked about the Master of Finance, that particularly as a female superintendent, this was giving you a leg up. Share more about that. Maybe, for our listeners of what it's like, and maybe what we don't typically see being a female leading in this space.
That's a good question. I see why you have a successful podcast.
Oh, that's
Um,
very kind. That's very. I have a great team. I have a great team.
what it's like leading in the space. Well, you come in, if you're not careful and you're a female leader or you aspire to be in leadership in any capacity, if you're not careful, you can suffer from just the stereotypes that are out there, imposter syndrome, right? So you come in knowing the majority of superintendents, the majority of CEOs are not women, right? And women who do come in are very far few in between, and we don't last as long for a variety of reasons, right? So you can spend your time in that headspace, or you can say, what am I good at? Where can I add to my professional like toolbox? And how do I do that in a way that makes me competitive with the top person in the pool, whether they're male or female, right? And then you throw race on top of that, and you're in a whole
Sure.
nother bucket. And so you really have to. One of the things that we talked about, and I did that workshop as a LA County Women's Education Leadership Conference with Dr. Sandy Lyon, who's a former superintendent in Palm Springs and Malibu, Santa Monica, Malibu, which are huge, districts. We really spend time lifting up women and making sure that you have to be intentional about, what your contract looks like. You have to be comfortable talking about money because a lot of times women will take a back seat there.
Yeah.
And so building my skill set was important to me and being confident that whatever gifts I have, regardless of my race or gender, like I can be who I am and be successful in the lane that I'm supposed to be successful in. But I want to be competitive too. And so that was my rationale for balancing my professional playbook or my professional toolbox with finance and operations, because I started out as an instructional leader, as a teacher, an English teacher, and most women will do that in education. And that's great. That's okay. And then you layer that with race, and I'm a good disciplinarian, right? But I didn't want to be pigeonholed. And so I
Yeah.
took on opportunities that would allow for my audience to see my capacity. And part of that was being able to sit at a table confidently, even when no one looked like me, and just be myself, and
Wow.
recognizing that who I am is okay. And people always say smile a lot, because if you don't smile, if Black women don't smile, they look angry. So I spend time doing this. Uh,
Wow.
but I do smile a lot anyway. But that was some feedback that I received. So any feedback you get, you got to figure out what works for you and just be your authentic self. And then that's when the opportunities that are meant for you will come and sustain themselves in your life. So I really believe that, and that's how I'm living now.
That's amazing. I think that's the type of advice that a lot of folks out there would really,
Yeah.
really benefit from hearing. A lot
Yeah.
of our folks that listen to this, some are superintendents, but a lot are aspiring superintendents or
Mhm.
aspiring school district leaders or people teetering on the edge. Am I going to do
Yeah.
this or not? I like teaching. So I'm curious, maybe, you meet a young female teacher who's maybe thinking about this, going into this type of work. What would your advice be for them?
I would just say, if you want to go into this work, soak up all of the professional learning opportunities, and don't limit yourself. Ask for opportunities, look for conferences that are going to build your skill set in leadership, right? And hire, when you're a systems leader, again, in any organization, you want to be well-rounded. You want to have a global perspective of things. So don't get pigeonholed in what your skill set is, or what you're comfortable in. So if I'm comfortable in instruction, I need to understand the other side of the business. If I'm comfortable in operations and dealing with student discipline, I need to understand instruction. So make sure that whatever your skill set is, that you're also building your perspective in other areas. Because as a system leader, you have to understand the entire component of the organization to make sound decisions. Because if
Yeah.
you're siloed, the decision will have an adverse impact in another direction of the system. And so I would think about systems leadership and seek those conference opportunities. Get an executive coach. We just created a leadership academy
Great.
where we have classified and certificated leaders who have never had opportunities to have a coach or to sit in leadership sessions. We have civic leaders in the community who are facilitating those leadership sessions on negotiation, just regular leadership, culture, organization, all kinds of pieces. And I went to the culminating event, and a woman walked up to me who, is a classified worker in public education. That means that, she is not a teacher. She may be a custodian or a bus driver. And she walked up to me and she said, "Thank you, Dr. Baker." She was selected for the academy. She said, "I've been in this organization in the school district for 28 years. She said, "I've never had a leadership training
Wow.
opportunity." And that was impactful. And it was a woman of color, a Hispanic
Yeah.
woman. And I just felt so good about her wanting the opportunity and then having access to it. So we talk about equity. That was an opportunity for her. So we're doing some good work. But I would say seek out opportunities and grow your skill set in a systems thinking capacity.
That's an amazing story. That is
Yeah.
that's got to feel good when a
Oh
moment like
yeah.
that. You don't always see the work that you do, but to get
Mhm.
one like that, that's got to feel good.
Absolutely.
One other piece that I want to talk about that I think is oftentimes when folks move into a superintendency or it's certainly into superintendency, but up into the cabinet of the school district, of the reality that you go from having one boss, you now have seven bosses. You have seven bosses. Of course, I'm referring to your board, and maybe you could just touch on what is that dynamic like. It's a really unique working dynamic. A lot of folks, certainly outside of education, do not have a working dynamic like that. And then, what is your role in sort of managing the board, keeping the folks at the district protected, but also giving them access? And so tell us a bit about your board situation.
Sure. So we have 7 board members. Some districts have 5, some have 7. You get
Yeah.
into these larger districts and they've got, 10 or not 10, but 11 and 20 something. So we have 7. When you're a superintendent, your work is the board. You have to surround yourself with an executive team that you can work with and delegate to. But if you are doing tasks and not focus on systems work and governance development, you're going to get yourself into some trouble, right?
Yeah.
And so I do one-on-ones with my board members. And when folks have questions, we respond in kind. I meet with them regularly, and we have our board meetings. I do the board agendas with our board president. And community members reach out to board members and they can say anything they want to say, right? Truth or not truth. People can post anything they want to post,
What do you mean?
truthfully
You
or
mean
not.
every public comment isn't 100% fact? This is groundbreaking news for the listeners.
Glad I can help. Yeah, and you have to sit there and take it as a
Right.
professional, and so you have to, that's the political part of the job, taking the hits, letting everybody say everything is your fault, even though you've gone into year 2 of a job, and you got to be comfortable with that and you got to navigate it and you got to recognize it's not about you. It's the position that is under attack on a regular basis. And so that's why that balance in your life is so important. I've got a board meeting coming up on Monday, and so what my team and I do is we prepare our minds and we go in and then we debrief and we move forward. And that's all you can do. And that's my strategy there.
Did anyone train you for that? Did you have any coaching on setting
Oh
up for
yeah,
that, or just trial by
absolutely.
fire? Okay, so you had
Oh
some
no.
folks.
Yeah, well trained in that area. I was a deputy for that superintendent, Dr. Collins Hart. She is retired. She's I think she may be retiring soon. She's in Hazelwood in St. Louis County, North St. Louis County. Phenomenal leader. She allowed me to watch her engage and then she would debrief with me one-on-one and ask me why, do I know why she did certain things? And so I learned a lot from her. And I
Wow.
have a coach now, Dr. Sandy Lyon, and we debrief and talk through, how things are going. And women who have been in the industry much longer than I have a perspective because they've already had these experiences. And so I think it's really important to have a coach, because you're not going to learn everything in your doctoral programs. It's just, it feels different when you're the one in the hot seat for something that you may or may not know nothing about, or something that's being narrated in a way that isn't altogether accurate, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just how to take it.
You got to take, and I'm sure,
Yeah.
I mean, that type of mentorship is invaluable, right? Like that type of coaching and partnership, friendship. And I'm sure, without even asking, you're paying that forward to folks around you right now. I can tell right away. I'm sure others are going to, at some point, maybe be on this podcast or another, referencing Dr. Baker and the work that you did for that. You talked a little bit about previous districts. I know you were at Fresno before. That's a gigantic district system. What did you notice as a difference moving from someplace, 70 plus thousand students to you're around what, 15,000, 14,000 right now? So, or is it more the same, just at a different scale?
Yeah, I mean, the larger the district is, the more complex the challenges are, right? And
Yeah.
so Fresno is the third largest school district in the state of California with over 1,000 school districts, 70,000 kids. I was the chief academic officer there, had my combined budget across all the ed services or instructional divisions departments was over $500 million. And
Wow.
so it was a huge system, but it was good experience. I always knew I wanted to be a superintendent of a larger system. And so one way to do that is to make sure you get experience in those, in a system that's large. And so coming out of that role, which is very much like a soup job because it's such a huge position, I was more prepared to be at a mid-sized district like Norwalk, Mirada Unified, where we have around 15,000 kids. And so, but the complexities of the union, the board, the community, because it's much larger, it is very complex and the relationships are very entangled, just like anywhere. But you just have more of it. And so it does prepare you to lead a system on your own, on a similar scale or a smaller scale. So I'm glad I had that experience.
Great. Yeah, I think it's great to see the different sides of it. I think that anyone I talk to that's gone through the superintendency, if they've dipped their toe in whether it's a Council of Great City Schools district or not, just something that runs at that scale, it really is interesting to
Yeah.
see those different pieces. Before we wrap up and get your final words and thoughts, we'd like to do kind of a rapid fire section every once in a while on this podcast. Some different fun questions. It's fun. Don't worry. We'll start easy, but then we'll get you. We'll get you at some point. Don't worry. All right, you're flying aisle, middle, or window seat.
Aisle.
No one's ever said middle. We've never had a middle.
That's because you can't move.
No, I know. If someone says middle, we call the cops immediately.
Yeah.
That's that. What was your first job you ever had or remember having, and did you love it, hate it? How do you remember it?
My first job, I think, was Raging Waters in San Dimas, and I was serving like French fries and burgers at a stand. Didn't love it. It gets crowded, and I always knew I was bigger than that. I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life, God. Like, help me.
Nothing will get your hustle going like working in the service industry. I'm telling you what. I buzzed tables. I bartended. I waited. I was like, I need to make something of myself. So I feel that.
Yeah.
Who is your dream dinner guest? Someone you could have dinner with, dead or alive?
God.
Okay.
I would say with God and ask him, why does he allow suffering? Why
Oh,
does he allow mean people to treat other people poorly? That's what I would ask him.
just a light conversation, just a light dinner chat. Uh, what's the best vacation you've ever taken in your life?
Oh, that's a good one. The best vacation I've ever taken, maybe Miami with my girlfriends.
Fun.
When I was younger, oh no, Rosarito. I went to Rosarito in college for spring break with a group of girls. I had never been to Mexico before. It was so much fun. So we, stayed at a home near a beach and went to dinners and clubs. It was fun as a kid,
That is fun.
teenage, no, college student.
As an appropriate aged person is what we'll say for the podcast.
Thank you.
If you could have a theme song for when you walk into your cabinet meeting or board meeting, what song would play as you entered?
It will be Survivor by Destiny's Child.
Okay, I love that. And then similarly, if your leadership journey was a movie, what's the title of that movie?
I made it.
I made it. Okay. Those kind of go well together. The song would probably be in the movie. And what's one habit outside of work that you swear by that makes you successful in what you do professionally?
Prayer and reading the Bible, and really writing my journal.
Great. Amazing. And describe your leadership style in 3 words.
Focus, graceful, authentic.
Focus, graceful, and authentic. All right. As we come to the end here, is there anything that you want to make sure that the listeners know about Norwalk La Mirada, about you, Dr. Baker, that we haven't covered here today?
Well, I would just say that Norwalk La Mirada is a great place to work. I love being the superintendent here. I think that our students are going to be well prepared to go out in life and do whatever they're called to do. Our staff and our families and our communities, our civic leaders are very committed to the success of our students. And I'm just, lucky and happy to be here. And we're going to keep moving forward, focused on our focus areas, with student achievement being the number one thing that we're going to do really, really well as we monitor our progress going forward.
Beautiful. And then if we're sitting on July 1, we pick this back up. How would you know that you've had a good back half of this year?
I would know that I had a good back half of the year when our labor partners and our data all kind of align in terms of everyone being on the same page about what it really takes instructionally and collectively using our data to move students and to make sound decisions. If we can all get on the same page about that, I would feel like we're going to have a great year in the coming decades.
Amazing. And our last question is, if you bumped into, young Natasha serving the fries or maybe on spring break, knowing what you know now, would you tell her to run or would you tell her to take the same journey that you've taken?
Good question. That's such a good question. I would say forgive yourself as much as you forgive others as you go on the journey, and make sure that you continue to speak life into other people as you move forward. I would just say that because I tend to be very hard on myself. I was a track runner and it was more stressful than when I was a basketball player on a team. So if I didn't get first place in a race, even second was not good enough for me. And I would do that to myself in my head. And I think that translates into my professional and personal life. So I would just tell my younger self, just be gentle with yourself. You are a successful, beautiful person and you speak life into others, but you don't always internalize your own advice. That's what I would tell my younger self.
All right. Well, at the risk of copyright here, we'll say you're a survivor. You're going to make it. And we appreciate you being on the show today, Dr. Baker. Congratulations for the first year at Norwalk La Mirada. It sounds like things are going great. We hope to reconnect with you soon. Thanks so much.